little, malnourished, and these are the lucky ones. More than 20 horses starved to death on this Bulla property.
It was probably one of the most horrendous, tragic circumstances I've ever been in.
Dozens more were alive but starving. Neighbours Rob and Cherie Mitchell had first called the RSPCA before Easter. Inspectors drove by but couldn't see any problems from the road and didn't investigate further.
It's sickening. I still feel so ill about the whole thing.
I think Love the Horse is about accountability. There's a lot of people that say, I love horses, but they're not accountable. I think you owe horses. I mean, horses are majestic, right? It's easy to love them, but I think we owe them the accountability to look after them and to do better than we're doing.
I would love to think that this story continued the conversation of equine welfare, particularly in the racing industry. My fear is, and I will acknowledge my daughter for giving me this, my fear is that in 5 years' time you'll be doing another Bulla story, unless we make systemic change so that it can't ever happen again. The gift to the horses that remain, or maybe it's the gift to the horses that didn't survive, might be that we ensure it doesn't happen again.
We have a massive responsibility as a whole industry. We've been working on equine welfare for a long time before it became popular and the go-to thing for everybody out there. You know, trainers I know, especially in our stable, we always make sure that we're very, very careful at where a horse that's retiring goes. So we've been doing that for the last 30 years. So it's not something that's new to us. It is new to the industry and being a bit of a buzzword. So we're seeing it a lot more now in the industry.
I think because it was so close to Melbourne as well, you know, it was really, you know, from Spring Street, it was just down the road, really, just past Tullamarine, and it was so close. And it was just a bloody horror show. Because the key problem to it, I think, was that it was getting hidden away. You know, first it was hidden away by the owner, and then it got hidden away by the authorities that should have been checking up on this and that should have been responsible for it. And there, you know, for me, when the story came out and when we saw the picture of the horses, my first feeling, the thing that really got me in the gut, was that there had just been enough hiding. And we had to write about it, we had to talk about it, we had to show people actually what the real problem was.
This is how he greeted a Channel 7 crew in 2002.
Jesus Christ, like, what the are you?
He was accused of animal cruelty back then too.
Why are you starving these horses? Look at them.
We noticed there was a very lame horse up near the driveway when we drove in, and we watched it for several weeks and it wasn't getting any better. It had a very bad fester on its hoof, its leg, lower leg. I'd called RSPCA about it because I knew it was no good approaching him to see if they'd come out and check it out. I never heard any reply back from the RSPCA to find out whether they'd been there or...
The neighbours, if it wasn't for the tenacity of the neighbours and the neighbours feeling so sick about it and pushing to get it done, the RSPCA just never would have turned up. That's my opinion. They just never would have got there. So they just were not listening.
Easter came and we were going away for the weekend and driving out. I couldn't believe these horses were all wandering around the paddocks sort of in a daze, no food. We couldn't see anything there, but they were in a bad way, and I think it was a Thursday, I called the RSPCA again and asked them if they'd come out and have a look at the horses. I thought there was about 40 horses in the paddock, and reported that they were all looking really, really bad. And with that, we left and went away for the weekend. And after that, we arrived back home on the Monday or so, and after Easter, and most of the horses had gone. There was only a few down the bottom I could see from the road. There were probably 15 or so that were down the bottom paddock. And I said to my wife, well, that's good. It's RSP's been out here and done something about it.
Visiting a neighbour on the 3rd, and we were out in the back paddocks, and I smelt a really foul odour, and it smelt much worse than just kangaroo. It was really strong. And I looked in the general direction of it, and I saw a horse's hoof waving, which was, you know, horses' hoofs generally don't wave, and I thought that's pretty bizarre.
Carolyn looked across and she said, there's something there waving to us in the rocks. And she jumped the fence here and ran across to between those two smaller saplings there. You can see some rocks, and there was a horse laying on its back in between two rocks with its leg up in the air.
And then looked around over my shoulder just because this smell was just overbearing, and I noticed 10 dead horses just lying around him.
But it was one of the things of disbelief, and that it had happened and had gone from the horses being in the paddock when we, you know, they weren't fat and great condition, but they were all there. There was 40 of them or so, you know, walking around the paddock.
So I first rang 000 at 2:14, and at 2:32 the Sunbury Police rang me back to tell me that they'd reported it to the RSPCA and had given us a reference number, and that it would take approximately 24 hours for anything to be actioned, but it was now in the hands of the RSPCA, but they'd send a van out to assess the situation. At which point I hit the roof and said, that's not good enough, this horse is cast, it needs help now, it's dying. And told him that on a second count there was more than 10 dead horses. I'd now upped the number to approximately 20. And he said that they'd send someone out. And so I rang my vet, Emma Nichols, and explained the situation and said I didn't know whether she wanted to be involved or not. I'd spoken to the police and I needed someone to come and look at this horse because it was clearly in need of being euthanised.
At this stage it was myself, Carolyn and the neighbours, but we needed people there to be able to document this. I rang the local CFA directly and asked them to attend, but realistically I knew that if the CFA came and they requested the police have to attend. So basically I just wanted the police there because I knew how bad this situation was.
It was just overwhelming. It was unbelievable to see such death, and yeah, I don't know, I think I was just more overwhelmed and disgusted than anything, that it was just terrible.
Once the CFA and the police arrived, we made a bit of a game plan to go back onto the property so that I could put the horse down and we could also show the police what else was going on the property. So we jumped the fence and went up, and I put the poor horse out of its misery, and then walked with the police further up the hill so that we could show them the other dead, emaciated horses. At this stage, the young police officers rang their senior sergeant because they realised how serious this situation was.
And then I showed them where all the others were because they were spread out. There was 3 separate graveyard sites over the property, and I just showed them where they were.
And then as we went further, we actually started to see skeletons and horses in varying degrees of decomposition. And, you know, honestly, we couldn't even work out how many horses we were looking at that initial stage. And the further we sort of went over the hill, the more horses and the piles of horses that we were seeing. It was really distressing.
The horses were skin and bone. I mean, they had hair falling out of them and dry coats, and they looked dreadful.
After we'd shown the police the dead horses that were in that vicinity, we all exited the property onto the neighbours' property, and then the senior police senior sergeant from Sunbury Police arrived. He also attempted to call the RSPCA and this I think was about 5 o'clock. And he also couldn't get anyone from the RSPCA to attend. We gave statements to the police about what we'd seen and obviously that I had to put the horse down. We were aware there were other horses on the property, however, the police were quite worried about us going back onto that property, and so our only option at this stage was basically to keep trying the RSPCA.
People don't like to think that those things can happen so close to home. You know, we don't like to see people treated like that. We don't like to see animals treated like that, not when we can do something about it. There's always going to be people that will be cruel to animals, but we believe that the processes are in place to stop it. And when they don't stop it, you know, there's a hell of an outcry.